Welcome back, everyone. This is Vegans Who Lift, the podcast brought to you by your favorite vegans, myself, John Thomas, aka the Bodybuilding Vegan, the wonderful, the amazing Brooke, aka Miss Meatless Muscle. And today we have a super special guest, a very well-known vegan coach in the industry. She does a lot behind the scenes and a lot in front of the scenes as well. We have Dani Taylor, aka at Vegan Proteins on Instagram. So we're going to just jump right in today. We're going to go with the wins of the week first. And I kind of want to do mine first, but I'm gonna throw the football to Brooke. Let her start. Let her go with her wins first. So Brooke, what was your win of this week?
Thanks, John. So this week I'm getting my house. I'm getting a house with my boyfriend. So it's our first house together. We've picked our house. We closed on it this week. And so that's really exciting. So we moved March 1st. It's very, very sudden, like right around the corner. So it's a little bit stressful, but very exciting. So very, very happy about that. Can't wait to make my Meatless Muscle office. That's like what I'm looking forward to the most.
Oh my gosh. I am actually a little bit shocked. I did not hear about this off air. I normally know everything that's going on in your life, but
It was very fast. It was like very fast. Like literally the past like 2 days we signed the lease.
Sweet.
That's amazing. The housing market is not easy right now, so congratulations.
No, I know. We got lucky. So yeah, so that's pretty exciting. What about you, Dani?
Mine's kind of a little bit weird. So I love social media. I love all the connections I get to make on social media, but it can also be like a sinkhole where you just spend way too much time on it. So I spent some of the weekend setting up my phone to be as like uninviting as possible so that I will stop spending too much time scrolling on it. And like, it's actually working. So I'm very happy about that. It's always a struggle for me.
Okay, I need some help here. What did you do? Like,
yes, John needs your help.
Did you set timers?
Okay.
What did you do?
There's a couple of apps. One of them that I paid for that I think is worth it called Opal. And you can set up like chunks of apps to block for certain hours of the day, but they can be available for some hours of the day. I set one up where I just called it brick mode, where like my phone, you just hit the button and it's like useless for an hour. You can't do anything with it at all. I set it to like grayscale. I hid all of the apps because like we need these apps to work, right? Like we can't just not use them like some people do, but finding that balance is really hard. But the app that I used was called Opal, but there's some other ones if you want me to share them like with you after. I'm happy to.
Yeah, I might get in touch with you. I look at my screen time and I had a day last week where I was 14 hours on my phone. Granted,
I've seen days like that. It's like embarrassing, but
but Instagram actually is the winner usually, but I'm not usually scrolling. I'm usually trying to keep up with DMs, and that could be a whole day in and of itself. But okay, Opal. I'm gonna have to look into this. I kind of unintentionally had that happen this morning. I don't know if you're part of the big SOS outbreak, but myself and Sean here in the back, neither of us have service right now. There's like an AT&T nationwide. No, you don't.
No,
you have service. Well, you and Brooke are lucky. Okay. Well, I couldn't text my mom. I had to WhatsApp my mom this morning. So y'all don't have WhatsApp. Get it? That's how I talk to my clients and apparently my mom. My wins of the week. Notice I said plural wins because I can never.
You stinker. You always come with more than one.
Well, sometimes a lot of things happen in a week. All right, I'm gonna keep it short. I have met someone romantically, and we're taking it relatively slow. But I think the whole like manifestation thing is reality, because when we met on Facebook dating, she was like, "Oh, I've actually been interested in learning more about vegan meals." And me, I'm like, "Well, best way to learn is to date a vegan. So let's cook some vegan food." And now like she's well on her very strong pre-vegan to vegan journey, but also just an extremely kind person and has read all the same self-help books as me. So like we're on a very level playing field here. That was the first big win. The next, more manifestation. I need some help around here. I've been overwhelmed, and my man Royce just happened to be able to pop in town, and he stayed with me all week, and he's been an angel around here. He went and picked me up a nightstand last night. And I didn't even tell him what I wanted. I didn't tell him how big. I didn't tell him how many drawers. I didn't tell him the color. and this thing is perfect. He's like, well, I just looked around your room, and I try to piece it to what you would want. And I was like, you are on another level, sir. You're on my level. This is amazing. So two big wins for me. I'm just super grateful for life, and you kind of find what you're looking for. If you keep putting it out there, it's going to come back. So, all
Damn,
right.
I need a Royce. Where can I get a Royce?
I don't know. I told him I'm going to clone him. I'm like, if you leave, I'm cloning your ass. Like, he wants to, his goal. Anybody that's connected in LA, he wants to be a game show host and use that to promote veganism the same way that he told me Bob Barker promoted like spaying and neutering your pets and donating money to like monkey sanctuaries and things like that. So
he's like perfect for that too. Like perfect. His voice, like I could listen to him all day.
Oh yeah, he went on a walk. I should call him in when he gets over here so we could just be like, Royce, do Vegans Who Live. Like just introduce the podcast because that could be the opening of the podcast. He's got the voice, and I run into people around them. I'm like, guess what he wants to do? And they're like, what? I'm like, TV show host. And they're like, yeah, that makes perfect sense. So yeah, we need a Royce. Shout out Royce.
Awesome.
All right, Brooke, what's the game this week?
All right, so Danny, we have a question game, and we didn't have a jar, so we used a shaker, but that's great for
appropriate
the Vegans Who Live podcast. So, all right, we're gonna pick a random question today. Oh my gosh, this one. How do you think the world is going to end? Very lighthearted here.
Is that for me? Is that a question for me here?
Yeah, for all of us.
Yeah, we want to know your exact.
Yeah, let's wait. What do you think, Danny?
I mean,
robots, aliens,
probably climate change, and like it's probably going to end in a very like zombie apocalypse way, but without zombies. Like everybody kind of trying to get water and resources and turning on each other. I mean, unfortunately, I think that's what I foresee. I hope I'm wrong, but
basically I should become a vegan doomsday prepper. Get all the canned beans, all the ammunition, build a bunker at Brooke's house, and we're good to go.
Yep.
Yeah. How about you guys? What do you think?
What do you think, John?
Actually, I was just talking about it today. Not maybe too unlike what Danny said, but this whole SOS, this outbreak on my phone, I was thinking about it. Like, what happens when global communication ceases? That's a big problem for a lot of reasons. Not just that, I can't call my mom. That's a tragedy in and of itself. But think about like logistics. Amazon ceases to function. Walmart can't carry groceries. Now our food supply is interrupted, water supply, emergency services. That's kind of scary. Like I almost don't even want to drive today, except Royce has a phone that's not on AT&T, so Royce saves the day again. But like I barely know how to get to the gym without GPS. Just because Tampa's traffic is bad. And what if I get in a crash? What if I need to call 911? So anyways, what I'm getting at is the way satellite systems work, to my very, very limited understanding, is we have the world and we have a gravitational pull. All these satellites orbit us. And then there's trash because we're humans and we pollute everywhere, not even just our own planet, but in our solar system too. And if enough of this trash accumulates, or if an asteroid comes in at the right angle and knocks a few satellites off course, then those satellites knock the other satellites off course. Now we have no satellites. Now our communication is, for lack of a better word, fucked. And I could see that potentially doing something. Or if that, like, I don't know, if that could create enough, like, as I say, like block out the sun. But I might be thinking of something else. That's like dinosaurs. But anyways, that could be the start of like chaos. So I could see that setting us back, and then like a pandemic, and then I don't know, we just, yeah. So you guys go.
I feel like the more we progress, the more possibilities there are. Like even now, I feel like AI, the Terminator situation, is a possibility. Like Elon Musk has even warned us against the power of AI, and I really hope that doesn't happen. I feel like that would be terrifying. But I would think climate change. I'm leaning towards that as well, just because we are just plummeting towards the next mass extinction. And I think it's, what's the statistics? It's like the oceans are going to be pretty much wiped out by like 2050. I mean, that's not that far away. That's pretty much in our lifetime. So yeah, I feel like humans are just going to pretty much desolate the earth, and there may be some sort of terrible pandemic, I mean, I feel like that's also possible. So I feel like it's going to be human caused for sure, though.
Yeah. And like the climate change and all the floods and stuff could knock out all of the communication. Like I just see a domino effect, you know?
We could have the AI be like, holy shit, humans are fucking the earth. We're going to stop them. And then the AI stops us. And then the world just goes on living just fine, just without us. Yeah. It's interesting. I've been on a few mushroom trips and I had the thought that none of this really matters because in a few 100,000 years, we're probably not going to be here. And
maybe even less.
Maybe even less. Yeah.
Probably like 100.
Yeah. So 100 years or 100,000. It could be either.
Probably 100 years.
I'm trying to do what I can in my lifetime and not get too wrapped up in that. But even if I fail, the world will be okay. It'll figure itself out. I just don't know if humans will figure themselves out. That's where we
agreed.
Too smart for our own good. Anyways, let's go from all this like world destruction talk and jump into some more Dani talk. So Dani, tell us, what do you do? I know you're on Instagram. You're a fitness coach. Do you work just with vegans? Give us a little bit of a background there.
So I have been an online vegan fitness and nutrition and prep coach since 2008. So a very long time I've been doing it. That wasn't what I was doing full time when I started, but I've been doing it full time since 2013. And my husband also is a vegan online coach, but he hasn't been doing it for quite as long. We actually originally started as a supplement store. That's why our name is Vegan Proteins, because we were a supplement store first. We were the only vegan supplement store in the world, because you couldn't just walk into somewhere and find protein powder. Like, forget about anything else. You couldn't even find protein powder back then in like a regular store. So that's what we started. And then obviously Amazon grew. It got to a point where you could like walk into Walgreens and buy vegan protein. And we were like, the world doesn't really need this store anymore. So we just transitioned fully to coaching. And, you know, it was kind of bittersweet because like we loved that store. We loved running that store, but also that's a really good sign that we're moving in a much more vegan friendly direction. So we couldn't be too upset about it. And it turned out to be a really good like pivot for us also. And I enjoy it a lot more than running a retail store.
That is so cool. I didn't know that about you guys. I had no idea that you ran a supplement company.
I didn't know either. And on my own journey, I don't know if I'll get there, but like I say, if the world goes vegan, I'm going to stop bodybuilding because it's too much. It's too much work, too much investment, other than to have this platform for veganism. So it's kind of cool that in your lifetime, you got to open a shop, provide something that had a need, fill that need, and then eventually the rest of the world got on board, and now you're fulfilling another need outside of that. So that's super cool. I used to work at GNC, so like the only thing I could get was soy protein. And then I found True Nutrition. I'm like working at GNC and buying from True Nutrition when I get home. I actually need to place an order now. Yeah. I've been running through my protein powder lately, but that's really, really cool to hear your journey there. What did you guys do before that? Like, because I'm sure you didn't just like graduate high school or college and be like, hey, I want to start a vegan protein shop.
No. So I was a server and a bartender like forever before that. And I really I still think that's a pretty fun job actually, but I did mostly like get out of high school, bartended for a few years. And then I was already vegan by the time I graduated high school, but I didn't know any vegans, like not one other vegan. And I found veganbodybuilding.com, who I know you had Robert Cheek on here a few weeks ago. And, that's how we all met. We met on Robert's forum, like pre-Facebook days, just finding these other vegan fitness enthusiasts who we didn't like know anything. We didn't really know how to do anything because there was no information. So we were all just kind of trying, like guinea pigging ourselves with different things and learning from each other. And then eventually we all met up in person. I met Giacomo, I met Robert. We moved across the country to Portland, Oregon to be like closer to like, so we could all be together. And that was like a billion years ago now, but we're all still like this. So
that's amazing. That is one good thing about, I mean, we always talk about like the pros and cons of social media. And I mean, it's kind of like the same thing for me and John. Like we never would have met each other had it not been for social media. But I am curious. So from there, where did you decide you were crazy enough that you wanted to step on stage and compete?
Oh yeah. So this is actually really interesting. So I grew up obese. I was like obese when I went vegan. I was like 215 pounds. I was 16. And I was vegetarian before that. So I was like an obese vegetarian, went vegan, started losing weight without trying because that was never the goal. It was always ethical reasons only. Like that's why I went vegan. But I went to the doctor. They were like, hey, you lost 30 pounds. Keep doing whatever you're doing. And I was like, oh shit, like maybe I can do something with this. So that's how I started to get into fitness. But this is actually really funny. I'm going to throw them under the bus here. So Giacomo, Robert, and this guy named Jimmy Sitko, who I don't think is vegan anymore, we're going to compete on the same stage, these three vegans. It was unheard of. We're filming it. It was going to be a documentary, which is funny now because there's so many.
Remember this.
You do?
Iron, right?
Yes.
I never saw it. I was waiting for it.
Come out.
I was like, where is it? Like 10 years ago. Where is it? Where is it? Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It was like 15 years ago. We did film it. Like the whole thing was filmed. But I guess the project just ran out of money. That's what happens when a bunch of 20-somethings try to make a documentary, apparently. But so I was watching Giacomo and Robert prepare for this bodybuilding competition. And I didn't know like a lot, but I am kind of a nerd, but I didn't know a lot about bodybuilding, specifically competitive bodybuilding. And I was just watching them and I was like, guys, this is wrong. Whatever you guys are doing right now, this doesn't make sense. This is like low-key dangerous. Like, what are you doing? And it like lit a fire under me to learn as much as I possibly could about prepping and peak week and, you know, all of the stuff. Like, why are you guys following advice from bodybuilders that do something completely different than what you do, et cetera, et cetera. So I actually started prepping vegans before I ever competed. So I was a prep coach first, which is not usually how that goes. But I didn't have the confidence in myself because of my history of obesity. You know, you lose that much weight, you have some loose skin. There's nothing you can do about that. But eventually I was like, no, if they can do it, I can do it. Like if I go through this, I'll get the experience. I need to have that first person perspective so I can better understand them, blah, blah, blah. And then I was hooked. So
that's amazing. Did you have a skin removal surgery?
I did. But I haven't competed since I've had it. So okay, I had it done.
Say you look amazing in your pictures.
In still pictures is hard to see, but as we know, bodybuilding is not still pictures. You're in motion, so it's a little bit more obvious on the stage, and it's not like it's going to hold me back from doing something. But you know, if all things are equal on stage, and one person has some loose skin and one person doesn't, obviously the other person's going to get the nod because it's an aesthetic sport. So, you know, it held me back a little bit, but not enough that I was going to stop doing it because I really just enjoy it. So since then I've had skin removal on like my lower stomach and my chest. And at first I was like, oh, I'll get it done on my arms. I'll get it done on my legs. But now that I got that one surgery done, I was like, no, I'm good. Like I'm fine the way I am actually. So it was an interesting experience.
How old are you, Dani?
38.
And how long have you been vegan?
22 years.
Wow.
Amazing.
You could do masters.
I know now I can do masters, but some of those women, goddamn, like their muscle is like so mature and hard. Like I've been intimidated by masters since I was in my 20s. Like, goddamn, those women are not messing around. But I'm sure that I will. Like I will compete again. We've just had some stuff happen in the last few years that has made that not super accessible. And Giacomo wanted to compete, and we know better than to compete at the same time. We've learned that.
Very smart. I want to book into that in a minute before I forget the other thing I wanted to mention. So you started prepping other people before doing a show yourself. Now, to all the listeners out there, this does not mean you go prep your friends and do the same thing.
Yes.
I think for Dani, I feel like I've probably been down a fairly similar path. In Dani's case, I remember vegan bodybuilding and fitness. I think I made my first post in 2011, and I was on there back in like 2008. Like
and we probably knew each other. We probably knew each other then.
I learned a lot. I wasn't even the bodybuilding vegan back then. I think I was like Gainesville Muscle or something because I lived in Gainesville. Like I don't even remember. Like I was a lurker. There's a ton of lurkers out there, and like that's totally fine. I just wasn't public about anything. But anyways, before I get too in the weeds, I think it's really interesting because for you, there was no book you could go research. There was no course that you could take. There was no way for you to learn this to prep other people other than to prep other people or prep yourself. But at the end of the day, what works for you might not work for Robert or for Giacomo. So you had a lot of the experimentation side that I've also had myself. Granted, I'm in a slightly different realm. I work with athletes both on the natural and the enhanced side, but kind of like what you're saying, you looked at what traditional bodybuilding was doing and you're like, well, you guys aren't exactly traditional bodybuilders, so some things might be different here. I kind of had the same side. Like when I get a vegan client and he's a man and he's 270 pounds and relatively lean, and he's eating 5,000 to 6,000 calories a day, but he's eating 200 grams of fiber, there's problems. So it's like, I have to reverse engineer it based on what works currently for like non-vegan pros that are using drugs, and then try and employ that with some of my bigger vegans. And so there's no course that I can take that'll teach me how to do this. I can experiment on myself and then work with these people. So I think it's really cool that you were one of the pioneers for that. I didn't know that. I didn't know that was your route. So that's really, really cool to me.
It was very similar. So like I was doing the same thing, looking at what like Nicole Wilkins was doing back then. And, you know, at the time I thought she was natural. I learned that the hard way, but I was kind of using that and working it backwards for folks that like I was working with, who I worked with for free. And I told them, they came to me, hey, can you prep me for a show? I said, I will try. But, you know, I am learning and we can learn together. And if you get good results, you just tell people I helped you. Like that was basically how it started.
That's very upfront and honest. That's kind of where I started as well. I hadn't, you know, when you haven't prepped anybody for a show, you only know what you know. And
right.
It's
and sometimes I wish I could write letters to those people. Well, I'm friends with some of them still. And I've been like, dude, I am sorry. Like there are some things I did back then that I would never do now, but I just didn't know, like I didn't know better at the time. So luckily they're all in one piece.
There is an exchange of value though. Like you could work with, I'll say like objectively a mid-tier prep coach, and your prices and rates are going to be a lot lower. You're probably going to get a lot more hands-on attention. Like I have a guy that I'm kind of tutoring and he's got 5 clients. And his rates are so low. And I'm like, how often do you talk to these people? He's like, well, we text almost every day and we get on a phone call once a week. And I'm like, the only reason you can do that is because you're a college student. You don't have a full-time business with other multiple things, podcasts and everything else. Like these people don't realize the value they are getting from you. Because now, like, I had a client be like, well, I need to call you for an hour each week. I'm like, nope, you need to call somebody else. Because, you know,
I got a different price for that, my friend.
Yeah, we're going to triple it, just a little bit. And not to say that like I don't give my clients time. It's just we don't need that much time unless there's something else deeper going on. I mean, I've done that for somebody going through a breakup. I'm like, let me give you a call. Let me help you through this spot because I know you're not going to be able to focus on bodybuilding if you can't even eat your meals or crying yourself to sleep every night. Like let's sit down and try and talk it out and see where you're at. But all right, I've completely lost all train of thought. So Brooke, save the day.
I just wanted to jump in and say it's funny for me. I'm kind of the opposite of you, Dani, because I did my first prep, and that's when I started realizing what is going on here? Why am I doing this? This doesn't make sense. This is all wrong. Why are we doing different exercises every week? Why is there no progressive overload? All of this stuff, and I kind of had to go through that experience myself. Of course, I did have a terrible coach, but that's not uncommon. I realized after coming out of my prep, I have met so many women, and I've also, you know, just from watching your content too, because and I love that about your content is you are so real, you are so straightforward, and you take all of the science too into consideration, which some people don't do, like hormones, gut health, all of those things. All of that's important for creating you know, that aesthetic look to get you on stage. But it's like I had to go through my own prep to realize something ain't right here. And my coach had no idea what he was doing. But now in hindsight, I can see what the mistakes were and I can help my clients with that. But there are so many people who go through that experience where they have a terrible coach And I think I even saw your comment, OCB page. They posted the other day something about it was like they were taking questions and it was something like, tell us one thing that you would never have somebody do on peak week. And you commented about how people deplete water and they manipulate water and how they do it incorrectly. Even as a natural, you know, you take the diuretics out of it, you can still, like you said, end up in the hospital.
You can end up in the hospital and you can just look like shit. Like,
yes,
your muscles are full of water. Like, your muscles are, if you want them to look full and hard and you dehydrate your muscles, they just look flat and stringy. And yeah, you can overdo it. You can go too far in the other direction. But like, you know, people, natural athletes that just don't know better are reading magazines and stories of Mr. Olympia and all his buddies and trying to do what he's doing. But like, they're missing a key component here, but they think if they just do everything else, it'll be the same. And it's like, it's a different game. Like, that's all. They both have their pros and cons, but it's just a different game. So,
and men and women. Totally.
Yes, and men and women. Mm-hmm.
I got to see Mr. Olympia 2 days ago with Royce.
Oh, cool. That's very cool.
I train at MI40, so I'm surrounded by like the top of the game. So it's cool because it's actually gone both ways. I'm learning from some of the best people in the world, but now they're also seeing me decked out in this, you know, vegan gear every day, and like they're like, oh, we do have vegan bodybuilders, because there was one other girl at the gym that was vegan prior to me being there, and that was it. So try to put that out there.
I have long since said that even though I compete in natural and our team competes in natural, I have always said we need people on the NPC and IFBB stage who are vegan, who are killing it. Like, it's not going to be me, but we need representation everywhere. So I appreciate what you do, actually. So
thank you. I'm trying to step more into that coaching role. I have accepted some truths. I've been at this game for a while. I've been with my coach, my good coach, now for a couple of years, and we've made some phenomenal progress. But I won't be on the Olympia stage. I'm like 235 pounds now, and I'm working into the off season. And guys my height that are taking pro cards are hitting 300 plus pounds in the off season. I'm just nowhere near that, and I'm not getting younger either. 31. So I'm trying to learn as much as I can, gather the knowledge, and encourage others, so maybe I can coach somebody to do what my original goal was, is to turn pro as an open bodybuilder in the IFBB. Like,
totally,
it's never,
you could. And here's something that I think is really interesting, because I've had some clients who, same thing, they want to represent veganism by being the best, right? And that's cool. But the average person doesn't give a shit about bodybuilding. They don't know anything about it. They don't know who if it's not Arnold, they don't know who it is, but they can see you. They'll see you walking down the street and be like, whoa, what is that guy doing? And I think that'll actually end up probably reaching more people, even if it feels like you fell short of an original goal. I think it could be a bigger form of advocacy work.
I think so. Yeah. Like, my original goal was to change the minds of all bodybuilders, so that, you know, if I had found bodybuilding first, I might not have become vegan. I might have been so entrenched and I need animal protein, and this is my passion, so this is what I'm going to do. So I was like, well, let me be the first pro, and I can show all these other bodybuilders that they can do it, and then they'll maybe switch over, especially for health reasons. I think that there's stands on the unnatural side of bodybuilding. If you're plant-based, you're going to be way better off. Not that it's healthy to use drugs, but there's healthier ways. So, but I think you're right. I think if I became the body, or the strongman vegan or whatever, and just kept using my size and my image on Instagram and things like that, I'll probably have a bigger world view. So that's why I'm maybe pivoting. I don't know. I'm kind of 1 foot in one side, one in the other. I'll make a decision eventually. But I wanted to tie it back. You said if you manipulate your water, you can end up in the hospital. I thought you were gonna say or dead. And you said or look like shit. And I was like, yeah, that's way worse than dead. Like, okay,
way worse.
Like shit.
Oh God. I mean, suppose you could end up dead, but I have seen people actually end up in the hospital because they like water load, but they don't follow it with sodium. So they're taking in 2 gallons of water, but they're not taking in any sodium. So they like basically give themselves like water poisoning. And then there's people who just don't drink water for 2 days beforehand. And then they go eat a free meal and drink afterwards, and they look 10 times better. And it's really hard to watch.
There's so much of it. I feel like most everybody, their first show, unless they have a really good coach, they have, you know, kind of a bad experience. They don't get to bring their best. That certainly happened to me my first show. The day before my show, my coach just pretty much ghosted me. I had pretty much had no carbs. I had like 40 grams of carbs that day. And then the next day I woke up and I literally remember looking at myself and being like, is this what I'm supposed to look like? Like, okay, I guess I'll keep rolling with it. And then finally my coach responded and he's like, all right, you need to eat 300 calories worth of oatmeal and then you need to eat 20 rice cakes. And I'm like,
then you're going to have a food baby. Like,
yeah.
I didn't even know about this. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it was so bad. It was, you guys, oh my gosh. I mean, John knows a lot of it, but it was bad.
I was there when he's like, go get a burger. And they're like, well, I'm vegan. Yeah, go get a veggie burger. I'm like, you're in prep. When's the last time you had a veggie burger? You're going to go out to eat somewhere. What if they cook it on the wrong equipment? They get some other crap in there. Like that, Danny, is my thing on that post. Like I didn't see the post, but I would have said like eating something you haven't eaten in 12 to 20 weeks the night before your show.
You just don't know what's going to happen. Why?
John, we're so twins because that's what I commented. I commented, do not go eat a cheat meal when you haven't had a cheat meal in 20 weeks. That doesn't make any sense. And then I was so constipated the next day from that cheat meal. I couldn't go to the bathroom and totally ruined my look. And then the next day, I didn't need to look good whatsoever. I could have looked like a busted can of biscuits. I was just going to Disney, but I absolutely looked like a bikini pro. And I'm like, well, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep. That's like, if you've been having like free meals or whatever throughout your prep or refeed days, and you know that this meal is going to do this to you in 48 hours, awesome. Have that 48 hours before your show, but don't throw in a new variable during peak week. But it happens. People just panic. Like, even if their coaches are good, I think people just panic and start doing weird shit in the final week. Like, half of your job as a bodybuilding coach is to hold people back from doing dumb shit that they know better, but they still almost do it.
Yeah. Oh, coach, I didn't feel lean enough, so I did an extra 2 hours of cardio before check-ins.
Exactly.
Like, feel is not a look. I don't care how you feel. I'm trying to make you look the best.
And dude, you're barely sane at that point anyway. You don't know what you look like anymore. You have no idea what you look like that close. We're all like body dysmorphic as hell at that point.
This is why you get a coach. Me, I'm getting the leanest I had ever been in my entire human existence this last prep. And like a month out, I was like, okay, I'm starting to look okay. 3 weeks out, I'm like, I looked better last week. 2 weeks out, I'm like, no, I don't like it. I'm a little fat here. And then like the last week, like I was finding new little skin folds of fat wherever I could find it. Like I'm actually getting leaner. I can go back and look at photos and see each day I'm getting leaner. I'm getting drier. But in my head, I'm expecting more. And I'm feeling like I'm off. And I'm like, I'm just trusting my coach. I'm not even.
That's also like, that's just bodybuilding, right? Like you're never going to feel like you're there. You're never going to feel like you're done. So many people get into it thinking they're going to end up feeling better about their bodies. That's a terrible reason to get into it. You're just going to learn to hyper analyze everything.
Run away if that's what you want.
Since we are on the topic of competing, I did actually want to talk about something I've questioned for a long time and get your thoughts on it, Danny, and yours too, John. So I saw that the OCB on their banned substance list, they have marijuana. And I'm very curious as to what you guys think that would be a banned substance for, because I think a lot of people think competing naturally just means you can't take steroids, right? But that there's a whole list of different performance enhancing drugs, like even stuff like you could get from the doctor, thyroid medication and testosterone and all sorts of different stuff. So I don't know, curious to hear what you guys think about that one.
Danny?
Yes. So I'd be happy to like clear some of that stuff up. So the marijuana specifically is within 12 hours of the polygraph, because they don't want people to get high and come in and be super chill during their polygraph and like fake pass it.
Or super paranoid and then fake fail it.
Right. I can't imagine smoking weed and taking a polygraph. I'd flip out. So.
Oh no.
But I would say probably more than half of my competitive clients partake for one reason or another, usually to help sleep, honestly. Like that's why they would take it like melatonin. They're not taking it to get blitzed in prep, because there's nothing you want less during prep than the munchies. So
yeah.
But the other things that pop up, I think in the like message you had sent me, you said birth control, but birth control is totally allowed. 100%
Really?
allowed.
See, that's why I was curious, because technically birth control is a steroid because it's a synthetic hormone. I mean, it's synthetic, well, depending on what kind, estrogen or
Right.
progesterone. And
Mhm.
like, are there benefits to it? Maybe yes, maybe no, but it's still like in that category.
Yeah, I think it really depends on the person. I would think it more kind of hurts you than helps you.
Yeah. Birth control lowers your natural testosterone by about 40%. So
Yeah.
I have the talk with any girl I bring on that wants to compete, or even lifestyle that wants to like really grow some muscle, and be like, are you on birth control? If they're like, yeah. I'm like, I'm not your doctor. I'm not here to tell you what to do. These are the facts.
Yeah.
You should research this. You are going to have a lower testosterone rate on birth control.
Yep.
And your progress will be inhibited. So it's your call,
Yeah.
but you might want to research it. And I've had a few women come off, and like, there a lot of things change. Even their mental outlook, their attraction to their partner. It's like we've changed these people with birth control, and nobody thinks twice about it. You want to talk about getting on testosterone, everybody freaks out. Oh God, you want to be on steroids? But we just give our 16-year-olds birth control like fucking Skittles.
Yeah.
Preach. Okay, we need to save this one, Sean. That was perfect, John. I was put on birth control when I was 16 for acne.
Yeah, that's a terrible reason to go on it.
Terrible. And I was on it for years, and truly when I came off of it, it was life-changing. And I only came off of it because I had a coach tell me, look, it's going to be really hard for you to compete, if you're on birth control. So I came off of it. And it was life-changing. I felt like a whole new person, but I have struggled with my testosterone ever since then. And I truly believe, and I'm in my 20s, like I shouldn't have like low testosterone, but I have had low testosterone ever since the pill. So yeah, I mean, I could make a whole podcast about birth control.
That's funny. Giacomo and I are actually recording a podcast about birth control like next week.
Great.
But I'm going to give both sides, because I do want to give the flip side of that, because I do think that birth control can make a lot of things harder for a lot of people. But I'll use myself as an example, because I am on birth control. So I don't want to give medical advice, so I'm not going to give medical advice, but I have endometriosis. So
yes,
1 week of every month, 25% of my life, for up until I started doing this, I was in bed. I couldn't go to the gym. I couldn't eat. I was like puking and shitting and like all the horrible, like in so much pain. So basically I'm on the lowest dose of birth control, and I cut it in half, because all I need to do is just have enough to suppress that from happening. So I don't use it as actual birth control. That would not work. But, and that's given me it's given me my life back. I can train every week now. So in that way, it makes it like, it helps me make progress, but that wouldn't be the case for everybody. So I do think it's like kind of a case by case basis. And I do always encourage my athletes to like consider it, like consider both sides. If you're on it and you think it's harming you, like, do you need to be on it? Why are you on it? Why'd you start taking it? But also, if I have clients that like literally, I mean, you guys have female clients. Some of them are like knocked out 1 to 2 weeks every month. They're not training as hard, or they're not training at all, or they're eating really weird. Like in that case, pros and cons to everything.
PCOS is a good example of that too. I had a brief scare with ovarian cyst, and it ended up just being a weird random thing that never happened again. But the solution was, if this keeps happening, you're going to have to go on birth control. And it was so painful. I was like, fuck, like, whatever, like I'll do it. Like, but so I do feel like it has a place, but it's kind of like one of those things where I do feel like it's overprescribed, for silly reasons, kind of like antibiotics or Xanax or something like that. It's just, but that's also part of our healthcare system here in the US. It's just, it's a Band-Aid for a lot of different issues that really could be helped with holistic healing and nutrition and fitness. It's not like everybody needs to be on a medication,
Totally. I 100% agree.
I think it's case by case for sure. And from the holistic side, looking at seed cycling, that's something that I have a lot of my athletes check into that don't want to be on birth control, but are trying to keep their hormones in check. The other thing is, like, if I say, hey, I'm going to go on steroids, that doesn't mean anything. Like I'm not going to list them. We might get caught on some AI thing, and we might get shut down like I did on YouTube last week. But there's in the bodybuilding world probably over 50 different, probably over 100 drugs that fall under the steroid category in birth control. I mean, technically, I believe a condom is birth control. So there's different forms of birth control. For the oral routes, I believe there's like 4 more common ones prescribed in the United States, and they're from like older generations to newer generations. Then you also have like the implants. So there's a lot of different forms and types, and even administration techniques, like Dani was saying. Like, she isn't using it to prevent having children, she's using it to control her hormones. There's a lot that you can look into there, and I would think Dani's approach is the best. If you need birth control, I would go for one of the newer generations, and then the lowest dose that you need to accomplish what you need, and verify that with blood work. You can get blood work done.
Yeah.
So
That's, I mean, like, always check your blood work. So like my testosterone is still fine. It's well within the normal range, but I think it's because, you know, the way that I have to take it, it puts me back to like a normal person, basically. But there's a lot of people who are already perfectly healthy taking it and maybe throwing themselves out of whack. So
birth control
but it is
totally,
allowed. Yes.
Yeah, totally okay in the OCB. Interesting.
Yep. So actually, I think the INBF for the /WMBF is the most strict of all of the natural organizations. They have this very similar list, but it's just longer time periods. Like, you can't have taken anabolics for more than 10 years, whereas in OCB it's 7. So I usually use theirs. Like, I'll look at theirs because I compete in both of them. But if it's a medical thing, so for example, thyroid medication or sometimes stimulants for certain illnesses, like, you can submit a medical exemption, but they have to approve it. And you have to do it well in advance. They have to, you know, go talk to your doctor. The only thing that is not allowed, no matter what, is TRT. So kind of, even if you're low, even if you medically need it, it's not allowed. And I've often said, like, if I reached a point in my older life, or Giacomo did, or either one of us had like medically low testosterone, I would say bye-bye to natural bodybuilding, because that's a horrible life and I don't want to live it.
That's me. After competing naturally at 21 years old and completely freaking wrecking myself because I didn't have a coach and I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. I never recovered. Even after a year later, tested low, and then multiple more months of testing, got the whole run around, got on TRT. And so, like, my dreams of being a natural pro just went out the window. Like, you got to pick your life, your healthy life, over the sport. And what's funny is, being on TRT is a lot healthier than not if you need it. Granted, it's now pushed me into a higher level of competing, which is not healthy either. I think what would be really cool, because I do feel we're on a spectrum here, like enhanced bodybuilding, unhealthy, natural bodybuilding, unhealthy. Because if you're a male or a female, you're going to mess up your thyroid.
Bodybuilding just isn't healthy, man. Competitive bodybuilding is just not healthy. So
but if we had like a mildly enhanced, like, this is the allowed amount, like, we're going to do your blood work the day before, your test can't come in over this. I mean, the problem is they'd probably like ramp it up in the months prior. But if we could find like a group of people that handshake, hey, I'm only going to use 200 milligrams of test a week. That's it. That's it. And then we let them compete. That would be the healthiest form of bodybuilding. We'd still have some great physiques.
And I've thought of that. Cool. Like, why don't they just let like people that need it get into the physiological range, and we're all good? And then I was like, okay, but like, how are we getting, like, it would just get so messy. So I understand why they do it. It just excludes like a group of people, but you know, not everybody can or should bodybuild anyway. So
while we're on this super viral thing going around right now, I'm just going to ask you, have you heard about men's wellness in Brazil?
I knew that's what you were going to ask. Yeah, I have heard of it. I saw it. I think it's only in one place, like one show did it. So I don't think it's going to become a widespread thing. If anything, like, hats off to them. They made their show go viral. Very smart. It's not my thing, but wellness division is not my thing either. Women's wellness division is not. And I know that's like a hot take. They're athletes. Right, they look amazing. I am not saying that they do not look fantastic. I would love to look like that. But to me, it's just like bodybuilding has always, every category has always been about balance and symmetry as like the number one thing. And by definition, wellness is unbalanced. That's
Yeah.
the definition.
Damn,
So-
Dani, I love you even more now.
Like,
that takes some guts
again,
to say, yeah, because
if
a
I
lot
could
of
just walk around looking like that, I'd be thrilled. But as a category, it just seems like, okay, well, if we can do that, we can do anything then.
So let me break this down. Sean has this is why we love you, Sean. You are awesome because we're three meatheads over here, vegan meatheads. We know all this stuff about bodybuilding, but we might have some listeners that don't. So in the sport of bodybuilding, there used to just be men's bodybuilding. Short recap. Then we ended up adding women's bodybuilding. And then we started adding other divisions. So bodybuilding is the most extreme. It's the biggest. It's the leanest. It makes the most sense to me. It's like there's no limits. It's literally get as big and as lean as humanly possible with whatever drugs you want, unless you're natural. And then we added in other divisions and categories. And up until now, those were just smaller facets of bodybuilding. They were basically either told by the judges, like bikini, there's no weight limit. It's just you got to look a little softer, not have quite as much muscle. That's what we want for this. For men's physique, they actually have been implementing, and classic physique, they have weight caps. So based on how tall you are, you can only weigh so much at a show. Otherwise, you won't be able to be competing in that class. Then a few years back, they created wellness, which is the first of its kind, where you really are supposed to be disproportionate. They're encouraging women in that division to overly develop their glutes, their hams, their quads. I call it the centaur division. It's
Me
like
too.
a horse leg, regular, like fit woman upper body. I mean, I personally think the look is kind of cool, but I'm also a dude. So, I mean, it is what it is.
I think it's a cool look. I don't think it's a bad look. And, I wanted to caveat this with when the bikini division came on the scene, I wasn't a fan either. Like when it came on, and I don't know if you were like paying attention to bodybuilding when this happened, Brooke, but the division was kind of a joke. Like it really was.
Oh yeah.
If
Even
you look
like
back,
8 years
you're just
ago
like,
it was.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it has evolved. It has, like, back then I would have been like, what is this? We're just lowering the barrier of entry. Anybody can do this now.
You could go find somebody on a beach at any time that hadn't dieted or probably even trained and be like, oh, she can
put them in a regular bikini and put them on stage.
Yep.
And now it's like the most competitive of all of the female categories for sure. And those are athletes. There's no question about it. Right. And I feel the same way about wellness. There's no question. So it could just be that it's still in its infancy, that it's kind of messy. In the natural shows, what we're seeing a lot, and I don't know if you guys see this in the amateur NPC shows, a lot of women that probably could do bikini or should do bikini if they could get lean enough
100%.
are just doing wellness because they can't get lean enough in their lower half where women tend to store more body fat. So they're just doing wellness. So it just kind of looks like a messy division like a lot of the times. The pros look amazing. The pros that are winning, especially, they look amazing. But it's weird.
There is a huge misconception that wellness means that so I think because of the name of the division, people get it in their head that you're healthier. So you can have more body fat. You don't have to get as lean on stage, because I have women DM me all the time. Hey, I want to do wellness because I just don't want to be too lean up there. I don't want to look too skinny. I don't want to look that way. So I want to keep my curves. And I'm like, oh, no. You're still going to have to be about 8% body fat, just like in bikini. But you're going to have extremely well-developed legs. And I think people really underestimate what it means to be wellness, truly, especially in NPC and IFBB. I think in the natural division, that look is, a little bit more realistic. Once again, though, I'm a big Greg Doucette fan, and he made a great video on this about training for asymmetry. And I do its kind of thing, like, it kind of really doesn't make sense. Although I love the look, like I love big glutes, I love big legs, but a lot of these wellness girls, they're not training upper body like 4 months, like 5-6 months to not outgrow the division. It's like,
some people shrunk into the division. Like, some people deliberately got smaller.
But people really underestimate the development that is required in wellness. Like, it doesn't mean that you're coming in there with a bunch of body fat on your legs and glutes. Like, no, you still got to be ripped. These girls are ripped, but they are huge and they're jacked. I do feel like it's kind of getting out of hand, and I feel like that's why Tyler Mannion made that. They came out with that IFBB video last year, like really clearly defining the criteria for wellness, because it's I mean, these girls are just getting big. So as for men's wellness,
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
I
I wanted to jump in real
I don't think
quick.
it's hurting anybody because I mean, I do think there's a simple solution to this though. I mean, poll all of the guys and see what next division they want. If it's wellness, then bring in wellness. If it's
Mhm.
fitness, if it's men's fitness, then bring in fitness. I do think we should like figure out what the majority of men want though, and bring that in as a division.
I'd
I do
watch
think
men's fitness. I'd
oh
watch that
hell
all day.
yeah, yeah, that'd be awesome,
Mhm.
amazing.
Yeah.
Hey, service is back. My mom texted me.
Hooray.
So, real quick, just because people might not understand this as well, on the enhanced side, there's the ceiling is pushed so much higher. They're like at a men's bodybuilding show at the Olympia, you might have somebody on stage at 290 pounds. At the men's natural Olympia, you're going to have somebody on stage at maybe 200 pounds.
Maybe 200 pounds. Yep.
Maybe 200. So then at the different divisions in the enhanced side, we got to step down. We can have some guys doing classic physique at 250, some men's physique at like 200. On the natural side, all of these guys might be able to kind of jump across classes, similar for the ladies. And so it makes wellness even harder to distinguish on the natural level, just because there's less variability in the competitors. So I just wanted to clarify that if anybody was
Yeah,
curious.
no, that's a great point to make. There is less of a difference in body type. There's less of a difference in weights. Like there's just less of a difference in the natural side because like the limits are tighter, you know?
Yeah. So the judging
but
has
one
to
thing
be
that does kind of frustrate me about the men's wellness, if it is to take off, which I don't think it will, but if it were, it's frustrating that they're adding more men's categories when they've basically pushed all the female bodybuilders out. So
Yeah, true. They took figure out of the Arnold, which is kind of frustrating for a lot of women out there.
Didn't they take physique out as well?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
so
bodybuilding's been gone for like years. And it's like they encouraged those women to get that big by rewarding them every single year. Those women will never be the same ever again. What are they going to do? Go be kindergarten teachers now? No, they're going to work on fetish sites. That's what they're going to do. That's the only thing left that they can do. And
I didn't even think about that, but that makes sense.
what are they going to do now? Like the women's
I was thinking
bodybuilders.
coaching, but you know what? Fetish sites. It's probably easier, less headaches, more money. Yeah.
OnlyFans.
Yeah.
So my thing here, I want to put my spiel out there. I made a reel the other day. I felt moved because I had seen so many. I'm this weird subsect of veganism and then bodybuilding, and I got some people that just do vegan and some people that just do bodybuilding. A ton of my male friends in the bodybuilding community were putting stuff on their stories saying like, "This is the worst thing that's ever happened. I can't believe the sport's doing this. We got men's wellness. We haven't even said what it is. It's basically the same thing as women's wellness. So a guy that's got a skinnier upper frame and like giant glutes, kind of in a thong. You know what? It doesn't look too much like, pardon my like PR here or whatever, like homoerotic. I could totally see why people think it's about that. But even if it is, who fucking cares? Why is this the thing that you're upset about right now? You feel so moved to talk about men's wellness, but you don't feel moved to talk about 80 billion animals dying a year, or children dying in wars overseas, or crime, or anything else that you could feel moved to talk about. Like, people, take a look in the mirror. You're a bodybuilder.
Yeah.
People would say the same thing about you in the 80s. They'd say, what's
with
this weird guy in a thong on stage? He's weird. That's gross. What did they say about women's bodybuilding? Oh, that's weird. That's gross. Like, we've come a long way. And this division isn't the end of the world. I do agree with Brooke and you, Dani, that like men's fitness, like a gymnastics routine with a fit body, would have been better. I hadn't considered adding more women's divisions or something like that, because there are more current women's divisions. But also, at the end of the day, it's not about what the people want. The people don't matter. Yeah. What matters is voting with your money. If they put men's wellness in a show and everybody shows up to that and pays the entry fee, NPC is going to be all over that. I guarantee it. I bet if they had a sumo wrestler division that would sell out 1 million seats, the NPC would add that. They're a business. At the end of the day, they're going to do what makes financial sense. So it's not politics. It's not anything like that. I think whoever did this in Brazil, good for them, because they're smart as hell. We're talking about it now. We're giving them free advertising. Whoever did that is a genius.
Yeah, I agree.
It was a little clickbaity, I think, because it is, like Dani said, it was a very small, like nobody local show in Brazil. So I don't think this is ever really going to catch on, but it definitely got a lot of people talking. I don't know. So I think it was kind of a clickbaity thing.
But I agree. There was like a lot of
homophobic-
like homophobic rhetoric around talking
yeah.
about it. And it's like, dude, that's not even what we're talking when we're discussing this. Like, that's not even what we're talking about at all. Like, it's more about the bigger picture of bodybuilding as a sport and where it's going, you know?
Yeah. You
Right.
can tell a lot about people by what they post. Anyways, all right. We've talked a hell of a lot about competing. I got to ask this one, though. You have kids, right?
So I don't have biological children. I foster my niece and nephew. So a lot of people think they're mine because I post about them all the time, but they are not biologically mine, but you know, they kind of are. So
In my book, you're
Aw.
still a mom.
Yeah.
thank you.
Possibly a harder mom because you're like, I could almost walk away, but I'm not going to.
Yeah.
Yeah. So are your kids vegan?
Yeah, they have been since conception, actually. So my sister was vegan all the way through the pregnancies with both of them also. So they've always
But
been vegan.
don't they need milk? Isn't that unhealthy?
They sure don't. They sure don't. And they're super healthy. I mean, maybe Daisy has like allergies, but like that's about the end of their health woes. And the doctors never gave us any problems. So we're very lucky for that. I mean, it has its challenges. Please do not get me wrong, but we're lucky that nobody has like come for us. You know, as foster situation, I was afraid that the state was gonna say something because you know they could be like, "Well, you're not feeding these kids correctly, so we're gonna take them away." But luckily, that
Yeah.
didn't happen. Maybe in a different state it would have, but in Massachusetts it was okay. So
Yeah.
Wow.
So all the families that got like, sixth graders running around at 220 pounds because they're eating Twinkies all day. Nah, that's okay. We're going to let them be. But this vegan family with those healthy looking kids, we're yanking them out. That can't happen. We got to kill some animals here.
right. But
Yeah.
I was
It's
scared. I
crazy.
was scared that was gonna happen.
Man.
So
It's
how
not-
do they approach like eating around their friends who obviously aren't vegan? Like, do they ever, feel uncomfortable about it? How do they feel in social situations?
I think the only time that they feel uncomfortable about it is if it's like a birthday party, right? Because then all the kids are eating cake and they want to eat the cake, but they can't have that. So the thing that I try to do in that situation, I mean, I always try to bring something for them. If I know they're going to a birthday party, I can pretty safely assume there's going to be cake. I'm going to send them with a cupcake. Or if they're having pizza, I will put slices of vegan pizza in a little lunchbox for them so they can still feel like they're doing all the stuff the other kids are doing. That's a big thing, is trying to recreate what their friends are doing, but in a vegan way. Because I don't think either of them would be really happy to just be eating like chickpeas and kale bowls while their friends were having like burgers and French fries. I think they'd both be pissed about that.
And I think that is exactly why you can call yourself a mom instead of a foster mom, because that is what a mom
Yeah.
would do. I want to interrupt this message real quick. We just have the man of the hour himself, Royce Ashcroft. He walked in the room. This is going to be, you guys are going to see him on TV. I promise this. I'm manifesting it. I want to get you to introduce, we say, welcome back to Vegans Who Lift. Okay. This
Oh
is
my
Royce
God.
Ashcroft, the voice of vegan bodybuilding. You got it?
I got you.
All right.
Wow.
Let me, if you want to say anything else, you can, but this is live. Just go ahead and speak. It'll pick it up.
All right.
Listen to this.
So it's welcome back to Vegans Who Left, the podcast.
Actually, that's really good.
Yeah, we might be able to use this. Hey, who are
It
you?
kind of sounds like the guy who brings us on the podcast anyway.
Who is this?
And I'm Royce Ashcroft,
Voice.
the voice of
Vegan bodybuilding.
vegan bodybuilding.
All right. Well, I got it. Hats off to him. He just came back from a walk. Had no clue we were going to throw him on this podcast. But
The most unhinged podcast
hey, we keep it
on
real.
Apple Podcast.
Yeah. Sorry. Anyways, I just had to do that. I had to let him shine. I just wanted to hear his voice. Okay. All right. We're back. We're back, guys. Sorry. We were talking about kids.
Talking about challenges of raising vegan children.
School is actually the hardest challenge, believe it or not, because no matter how many, they both go to like public school, basically. One is 4 and one is 7. So the 7-year-old's starting to figure out what she can and can't, or, what is and isn't vegan. The 4-year-old's still like, a cupcake is a cupcake. Like, he doesn't get it. Like, if we have cupcakes at home, he assumes he can have a cupcake at school, just as an example. But we've told the schools like a million times, like they do not eat meat, milk, or eggs. Like I'm not expecting the school to read every ingredient on everything, but I send them to school with food. Give them that food and don't give them other stuff. But I mean, we had Desmond one day eat a hamburger and a glass of milk for lunch at the school, and I was rip shit. I was so mad. Shockingly, he had like explosive diarrhea the next day, and they were like, "You're gonna have to come pick him up." And I was like, "I feel like you should have to deal with him right now because you did it to him. He's never had that in his life." So
Seriously, wow.
and that has been hard because I'm like a very non-confrontational person. But like little things like that, well, that was a big one. But it happened a couple times in a row. And finally I was like, do I need to send him to school with like a stamp on his forehead or something before you guys stop feeding this to him? But it's like, one, they don't get it. They don't understand what it is. And because it's not an allergy and a doctor isn't going to write a note saying like he's allergic to these things, they just kind of
But
like,
he is.
don't care.
He just shit himself. He might
Yeah.
be. Like,
Yeah.
damn.
He's the 4-year-old then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah,
He's
it's
super
funny.
funny. Like, go ahead.
Oh, well, I was just gonna say, my niece who just turned 4. It's funny how they start figuring out the world, and I know she will one day. And I try to corrupt her by buying all of these little like farm animal like storybooks and stuff, so I can just plant the seed like to love animals. But you know, my mom's newly vegan as of the past year, and we're trying to corrupt her, and we'll tell her things like, you know, that bacon comes from pigs, right? And she'll be like, no, it doesn't. And we're like, yes, it does. Like, it comes from a pig. Like a pig had to die for that bacon. And she's like, no, it came from the store. My daddy got it from the store. And we're like, okay,
Right.
well, yeah. But it's
Oh,
funny
they
how
don't even know.
Mhm.
oh,
I
they
just
have
saw
no
that.
idea. They
They think you're
totally
joking.
yeah, they
Oh.
totally disassociate. Yeah, like she has no idea. Like if you're like a hamburger comes from a cow, like that's a cow. She's like, no, it's not. No, this came from McDonald's. We're like, well, where do you think McDonald's got it from? The store?
Yeah.
Like they just have no idea. They just have to start figuring out the world for it to finally click. But I think planting that seed of like learning to love animals is
Yes.
really important. But I've let them try like my seitan, like when they're over, I let them try my seitan and my TVP, and they love it. It's hilarious.
Yeah, kids so we don't tell the kids anything graphic because I don't think
Yeah.
they need to know that stuff this young. But we just tell them we don't eat animals, we don't hurt animals, we don't kill bugs, like
Yeah.
you don't go out of your way to kill a bug, basically, like that sort of stuff. They just
Yeah.
know to be kind to other creatures, but they get confused sometimes. Like if we're watching a movie and somebody in the show or the movie or whatever is fishing, and then they throw the fish into a frying pan, they're just like, ew, what? Like they don't know that that's a thing that a lot of people do. And Desmond is like a little judgmental bastard sometimes when we meet people. Like he will meet people, I'll be like, and this is our neighbor, and neighbor, this is Desmond. He'll be like, are you vegan? And I'm like, Desmond, stop it. You can't do that.
Let's go,
Desmond. And the neighbor will be like,
And you
no.
should. Yeah, they're gonna be like, wow, this 4-year-old's on another level than me.
Yeah. And he
I
goes
had
like, oh, we don't eat animals. It's like,
That's
oh my
hilarious.
God.
So
They must think
cute.
I'm teaching him to be so judgy behind closed doors.
Well, I think that's awesome. You're changing the world right there. I had a past life where I lived with my ex-fiance, and there was a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old involved. And often they would offer me their food, and I'd be like, I'm sorry, I can't have that. And they'd be like, why can't you have it? Like, oh, well, I'm vegan. Oh, what's
Right.
vegan? Well, I don't eat anything that comes from an animal. So then the game started playing. They would ask me when I'm making my food, did that come from an animal? I'd be like,
Right.
no. And then they'd bring me their like fruit and be like, did this come from an animal? I'm like, nope. And they're like, do you want some? I'm like, yeah, sure. And so like they started to associate it with something positive and something that they had never been taught before. So I don't think any of it probably stuck since I didn't stay. But even up to like age 5, like these kids were extremely inquisitive and smart. And I think the whole thing is we don't have to teach kids to love animals. They come out of the womb loving animals. We have to teach kids that it's okay to kill them. That's the hard part. We do that cognitive dissonance. And then once they're 18 and they've done it their entire life, they don't question it.
Right.
So
Totally.
yeah.
It's
Thank you for sharing.
It is very, very, the whole situation with them is just really interesting because, for me, it's not even about what they eat because they're 4 and 7. Like a Hershey's Kiss is going to go in one of their mouths at some point. Like there's nothing I can do about it. I do not want to be like, oh my God, you ate what? Like, I'm not going to do that. They don't know. It all comes down to intention, right? I'm sure each one of us have accidentally eaten something that wasn't vegan at some point. Like, it's about the intention. So just trying to teach them like gently and why, so that hopefully when they get older and they're rebellious teenagers, and they will be at some point, like hopefully they'll still want to like stick with it.
So do you guys, sorry, John, do you want to go ahead?
I talk a lot. Be imperfectly vegan.
Mm-hmm.
I act in the right way. I've been imperfectly vegan for almost 18 years. I've been perfectly vegan for a week because I bought some kimchi that had fish in it and it looked exactly like the one that didn't. I didn't realize until one of my followers was like, hey, dude, you might want to double check that label. And I was like, holy shit.
Mm-hmm.
So be imperfectly vegan. And then I'm going to hand it over to Brooke.
So I'm curious, do you guys eat together as a family, or do you make your own meals and make something separate for them? Like, how does that work?
Kind of depends on what I'm doing. Like right now I'm on a cut, so I'm mostly eating the same things every day. Like not because I have to, but because it's just easier to like make it work with the nutrition goals that I have. But I try to make it look similar to what they're having. Like if we're having tacos, right? Like mine might be on the low carb tortilla and I'm just not going to put as much like beans in it, or I'm going to use more of the like faux meat crumbles that we're putting in it. So it looks like we're eating the same thing, but maybe we're not eating the same thing. But I do try to eat stuff that's close to what they eat. When Giacomo was on prep, he didn't even freaking try at all. He would come down and eat dinner with us, and it would just be like this. He eats weird food. But Daisy would literally be like, Uncle Giacomo, why is your food always disgusting?
Because it's vegan.
Yeah, he insists on like eating weird stuff on prep. But
can you tell us an example? Like, I gotta know, like, what's an example of weird food?
He'll eat like a block of raw tofu and like dip it in sugar-free ketchup.
I could see myself doing that.
I'm weird because I would do that. I love raw tofu.
Yeah, it's intense to watch sometimes some of the stuff he comes up with. I used to just call them like gross bowls because he just mix whatever. He's just very utilitarian about food. I like my food to taste good. So he'll just mix whatever together.
I can understand both of you. I used to be like him when I didn't really care about food before prep. Like before I ever prepped for a show, I didn't really care. I would get like the Light Life vegan hot dogs that are like really low in fat, really low in carbs. They're nothing like the field roast. They're kind of like rubber.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And one night I was like, oh no, I didn't hit my protein. Let me just eat 6 of these raw out of the package.
Yep.
While I'm on AIM at like 1 a.m. talking to a girl in high school. And I'm like, what am I doing with my life? I'm eating raw vegan hot dogs. Like, what? I can kind of relate, but now I'm much more like, I want my food to taste good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've eaten some weird stuff, so I can't complain.
I also eat some weird stuff, but in front of the kids especially, I try to eat as normal meals as I can, partially because I don't want to like show Daisy especially diet culture. Like she doesn't need to know anything about that. She doesn't think Aunt Dani, who's like a perfectly normal weight, needs to lose weight. Like she doesn't need to know any of that. She can learn about bodybuilding and stuff when she's older, but right now we don't mention diets, we don't mention bodies, we don't mention anything like that in front of or around the kids because, you hear stories of how that really messes kids up sometimes. So,
yeah, absolutely. That's powerful.
It's so funny how you've created such a healthy, nurturing environment for these children to grow. Yet somebody out there's like, we got to take them away because they're vegan. Like, it just blows my mind. Like things that other families don't even think about. Diet culture. Like, oh, you shouldn't eat that. You're going to get fat. Like I've heard parents say that to children.
Right.
And it's like, what, dude? So bringing Giacomo into this, you guys are both vegan coaches. Do you both work from home?
Mm-hmm.
How's that dynamic? Do you guys get sick of each other?
Yes.
All right.
Definitely do. The fact that we are still together sometimes is like shocking because we live together, work together, train together. Like we travel together. We do everything together. But we still like mostly get along. Like we get on each other's nerves for sure. This actually used to be a guest bedroom. We shared an office for the last 2 years, and that was just like too much. That was too much. Especially because he's trying to talk to his clients and I'm trying to talk to my clients. And it's like, it sounds like a call center. I'm like, I'm all set. We need to. So I just broke this guest bedroom down and turned it into an office, and things are going much better now. But it's interesting because we both own the company. We both run the company. So I think that's the harder part is like, okay, who makes the decisions on this or that? Or if we don't agree on one of the decisions that needs to be made, like who gets the final call, or do we just like debate each other until one of us wins? Like that's tougher, I think.
Fight to the death, basically.
Right.
You guys need a Sean, a man in the background that can be the tiebreaker and do whatever. Like, because Brooke and I don't always have the same ideas for this stuff, but we have that influence, which really helps. So I was going to ask, so do you coach the women and he coaches the men, or how does that break down?
We both coach both. It just depends on who has an availability, and like, so we have 2 other coaches too. And I would say that everybody's capable of coaching pretty much anybody, but of course we each have our strengths. So when we're doing that like intake discussion, you kind of get the vibe like, oh, this would be a perfectly good client for Giacomo, or this would be a great client for Alice. So we try to pair people up appropriately, but sometimes it just comes down to like who's not full right now. But yeah, I didn't think men would ever want to work with me, but they have, and it's gone well. So
I'm curious to hear what you feel like your strengths are and what Giacomo's strengths are.
I was going to ask the same.
He is more, he's a little bit more hardcore in the way that he coaches than I am. Like we both have the same, we're both working off the same system basically. So at the end of the day, everybody's going to get what it is that they need. But I feel like he is just, like I said, he'll suffer through prep for the sake of suffering. I'm not doing that. So the people that are just like, yeah, man, put me in, like, I want to go all in right now. Like, he's the guy, because he's going to talk to them like that. I have moments where I'll talk to people like that. Sometimes people need a kick in the ass. But I feel like I just take a slightly different approach in the way that I talk to people, the questions I ask about like, what else is going on right now? Like, why do you feel like you're not able to stick to this week? Like, I really dig at people quite a bit. And I think it's just a different style.
Yeah, I think it's important. It is important. I don't even think I know it's important. Each client, you got to kind of figure out. I tell them that on the intake call, like, hey, this ain't going to be a 1 month thing. Like the lowest package I do is 2 months. And that's really like a trial just to see if we like each other. Beyond that, like I'm going to need 6 months. And it's not just to figure out your body. That I can do somewhat relatively quickly if you're locked in, but also your mind and the type of feedback that you respond to and the communication that works for you and the motivation from me that works for you. Like my coach, he's funny. He very rarely gives me any positive words of encouragement. So what do? I turn around and I be myself. I work my ass off to get a good job once every 2 months. And he's like, I know that's how you work. So I'm going to work you. I'm like, you smart bastard.
You do have to learn each person. And I find that people are either like, people need a kick in the ass or they need to be held back. There seems to be nothing in between. Like, so you cannot talk to everybody the same. If somebody is selling themselves short and being like, yeah, I think I gave like an 8 out of 10 this week. And then you listen to everything they're saying. You're like, oh, buddy, that was like a 4. That was like a 4. Like you're going to have to do a lot more than that. And then there's people like beating themselves up because they went 10 grams over carbs one day. And you're like, you need to chill like a lot. The stress of you stressing about that is going to be more damaging than 10 grams of carbs ever will be. So let's chill.
There's so much psychology that goes into it. And I think that's the difference between like a really good coach or even like a coach versus a trainer is kind of a way of thinking about it. Because truly, I think when people come to you and they're struggling with sticking to a diet or not even a diet, just eating healthy, like just eating a couple healthy meals and then not binging out all weekend.
Mhm.
That's not a nutrition related issue usually. So then it's like you said, you have to dig. There's usually a stress response going on, and that's, you know, what they're doing to cope.
Mhm.
And so you have to dig with people. Of course, they have to be willing to be coachable, and that's a whole nother thing. And they have to be willing to communicate with you. But yeah, there's so much psychology that goes into lifestyle coaching. I mean, even prep coaching too,
Yeah.
because you know there's just it's mostly mindset. If you have trouble going to the gym, well, why do you have trouble going to the gym? Well, I don't really have time. Well, why do you have trouble making time? So there's almost always some sort of self-limiting belief, or
Mhm.
you know, maybe some sort of like old trauma, or some sort of like maybe stress is ridiculously high, and then that's your job as the coach to figure out how to help them through that, and like finally make that association like, oh my god, I am, you know, blowing my diet out of the water every weekend because I'm so stressed out at work all week, and then, you know, I'm not managing my stress or doing anything to make myself feel better, so I just eat.
Right.
And yeah, so that's such an important part of it.
Yeah, it's a huge. And when I started coaching, I was like, "Oh man, I'm going to give people a plan, and they are going to get results, and that's how this is going to work." And I realized, like, 1 out of 10 people is that person. The
Yep.
other 9, they can have the perfect plan. Listen, you can Google the perfect plan. Okay, you can Google a meal plan, a workout. They're going to work if you do it. If people could do it, they wouldn't need coaches. So.
I love when I bring somebody on and they're like, well, that's not how I do it. And I'm like, you want to stay exactly as you are now? And they're like, well, no, that's why I hired you. I was like, that's why we're going to try it a little different. If it don't work, we can always go back. We can
Mhm.
always go back to what you're used to and what you're comfortable with. And I think for me, actually, Danny, do you have a coach yourself, or do you self-coach?
So right now I don't, because I'm not, I don't feel like I need one when I'm not like actively preparing to compete. But when I do, I do. And it's Alberto Nunez.
Ah,
Yeah.
3DMJ. I remember
Yeah.
listening to him way back in the day. He was
Yeah.
kind of like my natty idol.
Yeah. He's fantastic. And then for a while before that, it was Lane Norton.
I train with Lane. Well, not with him, but next
Oh,
to him. He's also at
okay.
MI40 in Tampa. Yeah. So like,
Yeah, that's awesome. He probably doesn't even remember me because this was like 10 years ago. But yeah, I learned a lot working with him.
he might be there today. If I
All
if
right.
I find him, I'm gonna be like, Danny,
Be
take a
like,
photo
hey,
with me.
did you coach a vegan couple 10 years ago? Maybe he'll
I like
remember
it.
that.
He puts out some good information in the community, even like on the vegan side, and like showing how we got to dig deeper into different studies, because there was like this study that showed you do need more vegan, or you do need more protein if you're a vegan, but the study was conducted on people aged over 65. So
Yep.
it was like he dives deeper. He doesn't really pick a side. He just looks at the science. Not that science can show everything. But anyways, that's
Yeah.
really
No,
cool.
I like the information he puts out quite a bit. Like it was good then, it's still good. He might think a little highly of himself from time to time, but he you know, when you're the shit, you're the shit. So he really is that good. So
What's interesting, meeting him in person, because you never get the same, not, I mean, I try to be myself, but in
Mhm.
person, I'm gonna put this out there. Fuck it, it's our podcast.
Mhm.
He was extremely humble. When I told him
Mhm.
I knew who he was and I'd watched him for like 10 years, he's like, oh wow,
Mhm.
wow, I didn't know anybody ever watched that anymore. Wow,
Yeah.
like thank you for talking to me. And like he's always in there yelling and screaming, but like if you go up and talk to him, he'll stop whatever he's doing to talk to you. I'm
Yeah.
not saying go bother Lane Norton. I'm just saying, like, I think we all have to be a little bit overconfident on social
Mhm.
media. And
Totally.
sometimes I fake it a little bit. And then
Mhm.
it's like, oh, well, it's almost like I'm overconfident on a lift. Like, oh, I'm going to fake that I'm going to get 315 today. And then, oh, I got it. So I can do it. I just didn't
Yeah.
realize it. And I think he probably is the same way. He doesn't realize how big he is influentially. The whole reason I brought up having a coach is like, for me, it takes a lot of anxiety off. And it sounds like for you as well in prep, that like you probably could prep yourself. I've heard of coaches doing it where like they email
Mhm.
themselves their check-ins and they wait 3 hours and then they reply to themselves so that they can be more objective with what they're seeing. And it's like,
Interesting.
fuck that. I'm just going to hire somebody that's at my level or better and let them
Yep.
handle that
No,
for me.
there's a point there. Maybe the first 8 weeks. Maybe the first 8 weeks I could do it by myself. But it's not the diet. It's not the training. It's the analyzing the progress. Am I
Mhm.
making progress? Am I making progress fast enough? Like I know myself well enough to know I'm just going to mess myself up if I try to analyze my own photos every week.
Why-
Yeah, so true.
Why not Giacomo? Why don't you have him prep you?
So I prepped Giacomo once. That's
Oh.
the whole story. Like,
Once? Just once?
yeah, just once. That was enough.
How did in a quick summary, how did that go?
Oh, it's just tough because it's just tough. You know, they say like a prophet is never a prophet in his own land. The same way, like your families will probably listen to somebody else about something before they'll listen to you. It was like that, but prep. And it's very easy to take like, oh, we need to work on this or this or this as like a personal criticism, which is why when it's a coach, there's that degree of separation. A lot of my clients eventually, like, we become friends, like, and even that you have to be like, okay, I'm putting on coach hat right now. So just take what I'm saying as this is just your coach, because if I get too friendly with you, I am not going to push you to where you need to be. So, I'm gonna be like, oh, you're having a rough time? Just take it easy. Like, no, we got to get through this. So
Yeah, that would be hard. I don't think I could ever be prep coached by a significant other or even a close friend. I mean, I'm friends with my coach, but yeah, I mean that would be so hard, especially to if you lived with someone you were prepping with too. I feel like that would be even harder. Like, you know, you're eating in front of them. You're basically they're watching your entire prep. So I feel like it would be hard to not take things personally. And like you said, to just take that feedback and you know, really value it in the same way that you would if it was just somebody like objectively looking in.
yeah, like it wasn't a disaster or anything. I thought he looked great at the end of it, but like my marriage doesn't need that stress. That's all.
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to. Marriage is stressful enough. It doesn't need that too.
I'd rather be like, this guy in my WhatsApp told me I can't eat carbs today. Dang. Not
Right.
Yeah.
hey babe, I wish I could have some carbs today, you know.
Hey babe, your delts look like shit today. What are you doing?
I'm close enough to attack you. Yeah. Oh man. We are heading into the cutoff zone for the time. So Dani, anything else that you want to plug or cover or share? This is your moment to
I
kind
do
of
have
put it out there.
I do have your book here.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Flexible
there you
dieting for
go.
vegans. That's a whole thing. Because I'm telling you, in 2013, the concept that you could eat like chocolate and get to your goals was like blasphemy. Blasphemy. Now seems like everybody's come around, but let me tell you, the shit that I took back then when I was trying to be like, no, you can pick whatever you want to eat as long as you're like, you're not an idiot about it and you're hitting these numbers, like we'll be great.
I feel like it's still that way though. Like every once in a while I'll get these comments like, God forbid I post a processed food or white rice and everybody's like losing their minds in the comments. Like, no, or I saw a post the other day from this guy and he's like, you shouldn't be eating seitan. You shouldn't be eating seitan when you could be eating fruits and vegetables. I'm like, well, what the fuck? Why can't you eat seitan and fruits and vegetables? I mean,
yep. Yeah, there are definitely, I mean, it's still a loud crowd, but back then it was much, much worse. So
I feel like the crowd now is on the vegan side. Like me being an enhanced vegan bodybuilder, a lot of people are like, you're not really vegan because you use steroids. And I'm like, I don't kill animals. Like that's what vegans about. Like, well, how does this take? But then it's
everybody
like
else next to you on stage is on steroids. So I mean, like, what does the
And they're
dumbest
synthetic.
argument?
But then
Like,
I
they're
eat
synthetic. People think it's
protein
actually
powder
from animals, but they're synthetic hormones. So
made from potatoes. So yams. But like, or like Brooke, I'll post even not even junk food, but like a protein bowl. And they're like, well, why don't you just eat whole foods, unprocessed plant-based foods? And it's like, because my goals are different than just pure health. Like I'm not, I think that's probably what it is. A lot of people think veganism is about health, and it's not. Vegan is an ethical decision. Plant-based could be for health. All right.
Sorry, I went off on a tangent there.
Where can they get their book?
Veganproteins.com. So they can go there. We have lots of articles there. We have a podcast called Muscles by Brussels Radio. And also we have the Vegan Strong Plant-Built team, which is a team of like 40 athletes that compete in bodybuilding, powerlifting, CrossFit, kettlebell, and strongman. And they're competing at the Mr. America in October in Atlantic City. So if anybody wants to come watch that we could use all the support we could get.
Shout out Meaty McScorley. He's one of my friends.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
awesome.
he's great. Yeah.
Mhm.
You have a lot of good athletes. There's a lot of good athletes on that team.
Yeah. We try to recruit the best people that we can get, and try to represent a lot of different types of people too. So,
Yeah.
but it's very
We
fun.
have-
If you guys want to come out, it's a blast, truly.
Where is it again? Atlantic City?
Atlantic City, New Jersey, and it's in
Okay.
October.
Okay.
Hmm.
Ooh, I
Okay.
might be at the
Yeah, that's the Olympia
in
too,
February.
yeah.
Oh yes, it's the same weekend as the Olympia. I'm pissed
Oh,
about
I
it.
will not be there.
actually. Yeah.
If I'm
I
traveling,
don't
I'll
know
be
why
do
they
that.
did that. I don't know.
Ooh. Let's see. I know we had a listener question. We're trying to do some of those. So we'll see if Sean can pull that up for us.
Hey, John
Oh,
and
there we go.
Brooke. I love watching your podcast and I appreciate all of your insights. And I even like watching all the silly banter. I do have a question. Where do you get your protein from? Just kidding. I know as vegans, that's like one of the most annoying and perpetual questions that we're constantly asked. But I am curious, do you have specific workout routines for each of your clients, and how do you tailor your workouts for each specific individual?
Perfect. Thank you, Sean. And thank you, Amber, for submitting that question. I get my protein from the store, just like everybody else. But for the actual training side, I don't make custom plans. If somebody comes to me and they say they got bad hips, bad knees, bad lower back, I'm throwing them on as heavy barbell squats as they can go. I don't listen to anything they give me on their input. They're just going to do squats because that's how you build your legs. No. Okay. But for all jokes aside, everybody's an individual. If you give out a cookie cutter program to every client, and then even don't go beyond that and watch some of their form, you have no idea what they're doing or if they're taking care of themselves. So for me, with my coaching, everybody gets a custom plan because every body is built differently.
Same. I'll go next. It's based off your goals. If you want to grow your glutes, if you have any sort of lagging area, we'll focus on that. If you're a man or you're a woman, that plays a role too. If you're a competitor or you're just lifestyle, how much you can actually commit. Can you do an hour? Can you do 45 minutes? Can you do 3 days? Can you do 5 days? So yeah, it has to be customized though for it to work and to be effective. So it really just depends on the person, but those are all things that I factor in. And what about you, Dani?
I agree with everything both of you guys just said. So it's the same thing. It depends on goals, your age, your schedule, your injuries, your what you're like, whether your lifestyle or competition, like you said, but everything, we might have like kind of frameworks that we start with. But it then has to be manipulated to be completely unique to that person. So.
100%. Yeah. It could start the same for everybody almost to some extent, but after 6 months, everybody's going to look different with their training, at least for us three. You go somewhere else, you might get a cookie cutter plan. I'm not going to mention names, but Brooke and I have one in mind. We're thinking it real loud. That's all we got time for today, Dani, but it was awesome having you on here, getting your side as a vegan mom and how you're instilling these values in these kids. Like that's going to change the world. That really is. They're going to grow up, and I love everything my parents did for me. They supported me, but I don't know if I would have became vegan or had my mind open this way if I didn't have a good influence. So you doing that for them is amazing. So I just want to say thank you. You were being awesome there. And then Brooke, if you want to give any closing remarks and then close us out, I think that's all I got.
Yeah, thanks so much, Dani, for coming on. I love your content. I love that you keep it real. I love that you're science-based and your story is incredible and inspires so many people. So yeah, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you guys for having me. This was super fun. It was nice to get to know both of you better, and maybe we'll have you guys on Muscles by Brussels at some point as well. So
yes, I
be
feel like this
cool.
podcast could have gone like 4 hours.
Yeah, if I didn't have to hop off, I totally would have just kept talking. But I was like, damn, I should have scheduled that thing for later. Oops.
No worries.
But yeah, thank you guys for having me. This was awesome.
Of course.
Please put out the word. You guys can find us at vegansexplore.com. Dani Taylor, you can find her on Instagram at Vegan Proteins. Share it, put it out there, subscribe to all the things, and then Brooke, you can handle the rest.
Yeah, leave us a question at vegansexplore.com if you want to be featured on the podcast, and we will see you guys next week.